Hello and thanks for staying with us. Welcome to Political Platform on Repa Radio and Africa Independent Television, AIT. My name is Amici Anakwe. Now, today marks the commencement of campaigns for presidential and National Assembly elections. The election itself will take place on Saturday, January 16, 2027. Now, the campaigns will end on midnight of Thursday, January 14, 2027. But just before the commencement of the campaigns, presidential candidates and national chairmen of political parties that will be part of the election signed the first National Peace Accord in Abuja. The first one will envisage another one later. The accord commits the parties and candidates to peaceful, issue-based campaigns ahead of the commencement of campaign today. Among those who signed at the ceremony were P2B of the Nigeria Democratic Congress, Omoyele Sowore of the African Action Congress, Donald Duke of People's Redemption Party. The accord commits the candidates and their supporters to rejecting violence, hate speech, misinformation, personal attacks, and other actions capable of undermining the electoral process. We'll be joined by Dr. Hashim Salahuddin, Director of Programs Claim Foundation. He will provide perspectives on the essence of peace pact signing as campaigns for the election commences. But before him, we'll welcome the issue that are also on the front burner. We examine the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, action which has commenced investigations into possible price manipulation and anti-competitive practices in Nigeria's cement industry amid concerns over the sharp increase in the prices of cement. Now, the investigation by the FCCPC follows widespread complaints that cement prices have remained unusually high despite Nigeria's substantial limestone deposits, domestic production capacity that is even exporting, and reported excess installed capacity. The Commission's preliminary findings are contained in a 40-page field report prepared after a 3-month assessment comparing Nigeria's cement market with those of countries in Africa. They include Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and neighboring Togo. The assessment found that cement is significantly more expensive in Nigeria than in several of these countries. And so my colleagues, as usual, are with me, Uju Ejeye, Sholaja Simi, and Mustafa Mohammed. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, and we welcome our viewers and listeners. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
And indeed, FCCPC, an antitrust regulatory body, has carried out an investigation as to why prices of cement is higher in Nigeria than in other African countries. And indeed, it is one thing that they should get commendations for. In every economy, you have antitrust laws. You have agencies such as that make sure that a monopoly or a duopoly or oligopoly, that few persons don't dominate any particular market in such a way that they determine everything. They can fix prices, they can control distribution, supply, and all that. And it's not today that Nigerians began to suspect that we are paying more for cement, despite the fact that, one, we have limestone in abundance. Two, we have several local firms that have capacity to meet our local demands and even export. Now, what we are hearing is that some of those exported, these cements, the prices are higher than what you buy in Nigeria. And so FCCPC have said they have established that basis that there appears to be manipulations. Who is manipulating the prices? Is it the manufacturers? What should we do to bring them to book?
You know, I was a reporter then with the Federal Ministry of Works. I've also covered housing. When this government came to power, I mean President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the current Minister of Works, David Umahi, invited cement manufacturers. You're talking about MD of Dangote Cement was there, people from Boa, Lafarge, and others all came. And they gave assurances, but I'm telling you from the findings behind the door, the cost of gas, natural gas they are using one of the companies disclosed to me privately that before, what they spend in purchasing natural gas for powering their companies is about 3 billion monthly.
Okay, monthly.
Monthly. Eventually, it became like 30 billion monthly. And beyond that, they no longer have access to coal. License to large sites where coal were mined were given during Buhari to foreigners. If they need this large quantity of coal, they have to buy from foreigners who, first of all, mine coal here, like in the southeast, Enugu and others. You know, they call Enugu the coal city. Those Europeans will have to export it to Europe and for them to bring it back. Like we talk about Dangote's problem not having access to crude oil when he opened his refinery, which delayed production. Part of the thing maybe the antitrust agency of the federal government needs to look at is whether those problems, access to gas, access to coal, have been solved, yet the cement is still very
They're also
expensive.
looking at the forex, that's the
Variations.
price. Yes.
And
the depreciation of
beyond
the
that,
naira and other local
even-
factors, like you have mentioned.
Even before the cement went, as in skyrocketed, people in far north like Sokoto, Borno, Adamawa, Taraba have always bought those cement at exorbitant price like fuel. And I'm telling you, at these border areas that I mentioned, smugglers also commandeer these products to the neighboring countries of Cameroon, Chad, Niger, making the cement very scarce. So these are some of the problems they should, not just pointing a finger at the manufacturers. They should dig deep in and find out whether those problems the manufacturers have faced in the past have been solved.
They are not pointing fingers at anybody yet.
My take on this is that the FCCPC, headed by someone who we can say is our elder as a journalist, Tunji Bello, who moved into politics and all of that, and is doing his bit now as the vice chair of this commission. We need to go beyond because if we're not careful, we will become praise singers for government agencies which are supposed to do their jobs. Ameti, you authored a book on regulatory authorities in Nigeria and their responsibility. I'm sure that book, is available for those who want to read either online or hard copies. The fact is this: beyond the shouting that cement is more expensive in Nigeria, the same companies that make here, of course, we know Dangote, Bua, there are a couple of others. Some are operating out there. Dangote tried to, but, Bua came up and everybody said, we won't allow any sort of monopoly. So Mustafa has raised the issues that the manufacturers may be faced with. So the FCCPC should go further so that we don't do a praise singing.
That's what they said they would do. Second round of investigation.
Good. So let them do the investigation and let them tell us whether the same kind of, things they are doing in other sectors, trying to, curb monopoly, whether they can succeed in the cement industry. We know the mafia in this industry. We know when Ibeto was with some policies almost crippled, and the man had to shout out until things change. I don't know whether that company is still manufacturing cement today. So these are things we need to look at. So regulatory agencies, we must put them on the spot. When they do well, we say, good, kudos. Then we now put some pressure, media, civil society, and tell them, go further. Let's not allow a political lineage to make your investigation stop in one direction. What are the timelines? I've not gone through that report. What are the timelines for them to say by December we will get you? So we need to
in the
put
next
pressure.
3 months.
So we'll be watching. I'll be asking Mr. Tunji Bello and his team lots of questions.
Well, as soon as Shola mentioned Ibeto, an issue quickly came to mind. I remember one of those things that Ibeto was crying about at that time is the fact that certain persons in the industry were given waivers in the purchase of forex. Why he was not given? He was buying at the regular market price, while some other persons got at the official price when it was 150.
Dangote got.
Yes, Dangote got at the official price, but he was getting at the black market rate. And the discrimination was so much, it was affecting everything he was doing. I think this is also another area that the FCCPC needs to look into. Discriminatory allocations, forex, purchase of forex by industries in this country, and why this has been so, why some people are given waivers and others are not. And in spite of the waivers, we're still buying these things at very huge prices.
So some information quickly on that Ibeto issue. That was under Obasanjo administration. The explanation was that...
It wasn't under Obasanjo, even after Obasanjo.
No, it started from Obasanjo.
We covered the public hearing at the National Assembly, so I remember.
Yes, it started under Obasanjo. Obasanjo's economic policy was pro-backwards integration. If you're involved in importation of cement, you must demonstrate local capacity to also produce. It was the same thing when they awarded licenses for refineries.
Not that you bring in and bag.
Yes, they said you must show intent to, that was, some people will go and grab license to build refinery. They will never build, but they will be enjoying all the privileges involved in bringing in refined products. So for cement, the Obasanjo administration policy was, show us you want to produce locally, then we'll give you that tendency to bring them in bulk, and you can rebag.
Was Ibeto not producing at that time?
I can't answer that.
That's what we need to also look at. And then again, some of the points that Mustafa raised, I mean, Shola has reiterated it. I'm also saying they need to look into all of that. And then another issue of when prices go up in Nigeria, we normally say it's so difficult to bring them down, no matter what, no matter the incentive. Let's also look into all of this.
Okay, now, the issue is that Mustafa raised a very important point. What they saying it from the point of the manufacturers, cost of operating businesses. That's strangulating. You talked about cost of gas. Every day we increase the cost, the gas company and all that. But beyond that, taxes. There was a time Dangote told us how much he pays on every liter of premium motor spirit he produces in his refinery. So the FCCPC should also investigate all the different regulatory agencies, the taxes. Even the airlines are also shouting that the agencies, regulatory agencies in the aviation sector are strangulating them, that a good percentage of the money you pay for air tickets go to all these people. So they should also investigate that. But because we need to quickly cover a lot of ground, the peace accord, we'll go into it now. Let's go for a break to share with you some of what happened yesterday as the National Peace Committee signed the peace accord, where some presidential candidates showed up, some others didn't show up. Their national chairman of the political parties also were involved. Let's take a listen.
The election period has brought a share of anxiety because of the nature of our politics and the intense competition for power by political actors. While politics and the contest for power can be loud and often create tension and disagreement among politicians, we must acknowledge the progress we have made in our electoral process in terms of transparency and election management by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC.
The Peace Committee has continued to do extraordinarily good work. That much I can say. We were not set up, to monitor elections and make sure that elections are. We were set up to encourage Nigerians. A lot of poor people continue to die for issues that politicians have not been able to resolve.
Today, signing of the first National Peace Accord therefore marks a critical milestone. We are exactly 5 months away from the 2027 general election. The world is watching, but more importantly, the Nigerian people, the youths, the farmers, the entrepreneurs, and the elderly, they are watching all of us. They are not just asking for much. They are simply asking for a process that is credible and a campaign that respects their intelligence.
A political campaign should be a contest of ideas, policies, programs, and competing visions for the future of our country. It should not be a contest of hatred, intimidation, ethnic mobilization, religious divisions, or violence.
The first peace accord signed by the presidential candidates and national chairman of all the political parties that will be participating in the January 16th, 2027 presidential election. Now, key absentees were President Bola Tinubu was represented by Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and Atiku Abubakar, ADC's presidential candidate, who was represented by the legal officer of the party. ADC.
Professor Osumbo.
Yeah, Professor Osumbo, former governor of, indeed, Edo State.
Mm-hmm. You see, the signing of a treaty is a good thing, but it should go beyond signing of the treaty. When you talk about peaceful election, the issues of political thuggery, political violence, arming the youth, giving them drugs to go and carry out mayhem is something that we all know. Just look at the Osun election that just took place few days ago. Before the election, over 33 people were killed. Then start thinking and asking yourself, if the main election comes, how many other people would be killed in the other states of the Federation? Sometimes, like the allegation against the Nigerian police force under that commissioner in Osun State is paramount. In how many other states the security agents will be accused of joining the two talks or giving them cover to carry out mayhem? And even without the police, like in northern Nigeria, I can tell you, just like you have area boys in the south west, you have Endaba, Enkalare, Saras, Huka everywhere, from Kano to Sokoto, from Maiduguri to Kaduna. They are out there, jobless youth who are on drugs, being hired, and they are ready to be hired. I think the Nigerian populace, the Nigerian people, the Nigerian politicians fail to learn their lessons. These talks who disrupt elections, snatch ballot boxes and attack people are not falling from heaven. It's the creation of the society. As far as I'm concerned, it's not the signing of this accord that is important. It's the ability of the Nigerian people to tell themselves or to tell ourselves that we don't need a violent election.
My take on this is, as I looked at all of them yesterday as they signed, because I don't want to get into who came and who did not come. You could be invited somewhere, and you could ask someone to represent you. You have that right, and that's what President Bola Tinubu did yesterday.
But does it not moderate the importance of that event?
There are a series of signing ceremonies. This is the first one. President Tinubu, Atiku Abubakar, could be having a cold. I'm not making excuses for them. And they could, National Legal Advisor of our party, Professor Osumbo, please go there and represent me.
So does that mean that they don't rate that peace accord?
Like I said, this is the first one. I'm not making excuses. I'm not their spokespersons, either Atiku or Tinubu. But the fact remains that these things were signed. It is what happens when they sign the series. Mustafa has emphasized whether they will agree and subscribe and tell all the lieutenants down the line to ensure that things are done properly. Because when you say we must snatch power, they don't give power a la carte. All is fair in politics. And maybe if I can get a couple of ones said by one or two other, political leaders, I can add it to what I'm saying here. If those are the hem of affairs, even the man in the APC who said we should kill other party members, what has been done? He has only gone to answer questions for 2 hours at the Osun Police Command. Till date, we need to find out. And that's why we in the media must put pressure on him and begin to say, CP in Osun, IGP, the Senator, what's his name? Father Onsi, how far with him? Are you charging him for something? What questions are you asking of him? If not, all of us will just be talking and talking, and we'll have all the reverend fathers continue to say this and this. I'm a positive, optimist, and I like to look at the positives of every situation. But there are corners where we need to unearth and ask key questions. And that's what we need to keep doing. So what they did yesterday, positive. I like the optimism in the face of not a few who signed there. But the big wigs, we need to rein their lieutenants in order. And that's the charge President Goodluck Jonathan gave in his comment yesterday. He charged the same National Peace Committee that look at what happened in Osun when some people, governors stormed Osun.
Is
They
it
said
16 of them?
Yes, federal might.
Or 17?
And Governor Wike was also saying, if President Tinubu wanted to win Osun, he would have won. So these are comments that
All he needs to do is to get me there.
I rest my case.
You see, all these are ceremonies. I mean, it's a beautiful ceremony. It's good that even, in fact, the intendment is also something very, very good. You want to ensure peaceful polls so that Nigerians will not be intimidated, Nigerians will not be harassed, and all the ills that we have been seeing, all the malfeasance can be contained. But we've seen these ceremonies performed during every election period. And at the end of the day, what do we see? Violence, we see all manner of, all manner of malfeasance, malpractices, and whatever you can think of, particularly violence with every election. And so that tells you that this thing has become like a ceremony to most of our politicians. Is it not peace accord? Go and sign. Go and sign. We have our strategies. And like Shola said, if a clear deterrent action is not taken with people who have come out openly to incite violence, then we have not got anywhere, because until actions are taken to forestall such behaviors or hate speeches, we will still have some of the problems that we have been dealing with every election period. So yes, it's good to sign peace accord, but what about the conscience of our leaders? Is their heart in what they are signing? Because we have seen this happen, and then their lieutenants continue to do what they want to do. And they cannot tell me that they are not knowledgeable about what their followers are doing out there. It takes the body language of the leader for the followers to follow and carry out whatever actions they do. So we need to get serious in this country. All this, is it quoting, color quoting, and, and then not really being sincere will not take us anywhere. Let our politicians take a look at this country. Do they want to destroy Nigeria? Do they want Nigeria to remain? Because all of these kind of actions are things that have really, heightened the tension in the polity. Okay. And most Nigerians no longer feel a sense of belonging, because you want to vote, you're not allowed to vote for who you want to. You come out, some talks beat you up. And so particularly our youths, they are really struggling to come to terms with the fact that they have to accept all of this as part of their country and call Nigeria a country that they should be patriotic towards. We need to think twice.
Well, when we get to our mail section, most of our mails are not quite, in fact, they don't rate the National Peace Committee and the Peace Accord signing again. To them, it's just one of those things that happen, and it's a message, strong message to the National Peace Committee. Yes, we saw your relevance in 2015, but it has continued to wane, and it's going down. And Nigerians don't even rate it again, starting with the absence of key candidates. If, for instance, it's the U.S. president that is coming, wherever they are, you see them come and receive him. It tells you about how they rate it in diplomacy and in official matters. There are some events you delegate junior people to go to. If you don't rate them, if you don't see them as class A or that, you just say, let's go. After all, yesterday we didn't hear that the president was somewhere doing another state function. We didn't hear that Atiku Abubakar was somewhere doing another state function. It was not in the news. So they were absent, and they need to explain to Nigerians why they were absent. It's a complete disregard of the essence of that peace accord. Shola talked about the charge given to the National Peace Committee by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. He's giving more tax.
Good luck, Jonathan.
Good luck, Jonathan, sorry. Father Bishop Kuka was saying it's not their job. Yesterday, he made statement to that it's just to bring it up. But for that peace committee to remain relevant, it can name and shame. There were instances in previous elections where people violated those peace accords. You can list it. You can take a step further by listing so that media, civil society, electoral will shame them. You mentioned Father Hunsi. Up till today, APC as a party has not spoken. condemned it. The president has not spoken, not condemned it. And part of this peace accord is that you must speak against hate speech, you must condemn them, and security agencies should do their part. But it's just like, okay,
Doctor,
sign it and let's get ready for the main business.
I pity Father Kuka. You know his position in the Catholic Church, very strong. If you can give any directive in the Catholic Church as a bishop of Sokoto, he will be obeyed like God Almighty. But as a bishop among politicians, it's like...
he's not the only member of the National Peace Accord.
Yes, I know. But you know he's standing in the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Definitely, if some of his good wishes and wills are something he will tell people in the Catholic Church, he will be obeyed. But you see, among the politicians, they may not obey. Even the former head of military government, Abdusalami Abubakar, they can only do the needful. But I think those who will change the narrative are the Nigerian people. If the Nigerian people resolve and tell themselves that no more political violence, if anybody wants to do a political violence, he should bring his wife and children first. We have seen late President Buhari and others calling for protests and street walks. Have you seen their family in the street?
Well, you see their families when they are going to collect certificate of return.
Or they are going abroad on holiday.
Or when it's to push
their children are graduating abroad.
Are nowhere to be found. Shola talked about Father and spending just 2 hours in the police command headquarters in Oshobo, when he clearly threatened to kill people. And it's a big shame that the police has not taken any action. And I can tell you, if that statement had come, there are some opposition members, I'll reel out their names. If I reel out their names, if it is reported they made half of that claim, by now they would still have been in detention. And it's a shame that the security agencies are not seen to be neutral. And we have to call them out, because this country belongs to all of us. You do your own part, everybody do their own part, and our nation will be on the right track. Let's welcome our guest, Dr. Hashim Salaiuddin, Director of Programs, Clean Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. Excellent effort from everyone.
You're welcome.
The peace agreement Accord signed yesterday, what do you think portends to the next general election, which is by the corner? You've listened to our analysis here. Yeah. People are not ready to change, both the politicians and citizens.
Unfortunately, the most strategic actor that has refused to reform to electoral strategic pathway in this country is actually the political class, and particularly the political parties. They have consistently adopted a methodology for grabbing power. And of course, just like you guys have established, power is not a la carte. It is something that people contest to be able to secure. And in an environment where people have applied the notion to say that all is fair in any contest, it therefore means that whatever strategy you deploy, of course, can also be determined as such. Yes, to the signing, we saw that people sign with their hands and they don't sign with their hearts. And that tells you very fundamentally that it is not about what people come to make it a ritual, because it has actually become a ritual and a routine. And that is, of course, why the influence has continued to wane. And I think the National Peace Committee also needs to adopt a new strategy in this whole approach of signing. If this happens, what are the sanctions and who is actually monitoring? And of course, we need to also name and shame. What is the register that we have opened, for instance, to determine people who have signed and political parties who are committed to this peace agreement? And then, of course, afterwards, those consequences should be documented and be published afterwards. That in itself should be a precursor for the next election to say that there's some level of deterrence. If we begin to take those elements very seriously, opportunities are there that people would actually moderate their words, moderate their thoughts, and moderate their action in whatever they apply when it comes to electioneering processes.
Okay, so let's get straight to the issue of campaigns, which officially opens today. Each and every one of them, not a few have been campaigning before now. We see the wives of certain people bringing out money from cars, giving people. But officially, INEC says the whistle has been blown. For me, the Peace Committee has encouraged that make your campaigns issue-based. What are issues?
Well, issues are basically those lived realities that Nigerians face on a daily basis. And to be very honest, 2027 will not be determined by sloganeering. This time around, there is more political awareness. Nigerians are going to be voting based on some reality that shape their daily existence. Macroeconomic issue, for instance, will be dominating the conversation as we go into the election. How has this influenced the value of people's lives? Of course, the issue of electricity, the issue of food inflation, which we have established in previous session this morning, the issue of transportation, fuel scarcity, and fuel prices. All of these things will aggregate to shape conversation. But again, it is about whether or not all of this contestation of ideas would actually make any significant difference during the campaigns.
You've not mentioned something I thought you would spot on.
Yeah.
You are a defense security expert.
Absolutely.
You left that issue
Oh,
out.
yes, security issue, obviously, is very strategic, as a matter of fact, because all of these issues, if you catalog them, would be able to influence the kind of conversation that will lead us into that election. And people are becoming a little bit more politically aware, and they know too well that this debate obviously will open the channel for them to be able to interact with the powers that be. But one of the things that we also don't do as citizens is that we don't sign the social contract with the political or intending political office holders. Social contract, obviously, even though it is enshrined in the Constitution, obviously should be a charter that people should also sign and say, look, these are some of the issues we have. What exactly are you going to do differently? And of course, that also brings us to the issue of solution. It is very possible, again, that solution will not drive our campaign this time around. It will also be banters, it will be hate speech, and of course we can catalog them. And I think AIT and of course media practitioners has a responsibility to be able to also document and of course catalog all of these things and put them out there afterwards. Because to be very honest, it will shape our conversations.
As my colleagues also prepare to weigh in, back to the issues on issue-based campaign.
Yeah.
Do you think the educational certificate issue of any candidate is an issue?
Well, I think, again, the Supreme Court has actually laid that conversation to rest. It is a case of trying to make it a political content creation if we keep regurgitating on some of those situations. And I think competent courts, if they have actually taken a position, I mean, citizens would have really have no choice but to actually take that as a forward. But the fact is clear.
Did they actually take a position on it? Because what I know is that the substance of the matter,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court didn't go into it. Because it was they determined timely pre-election
Absolutely.
issue. So a KP state governor was forced to change his deputy. Why? Because the man that is his deputy governor now had cases in court, a post-election matter, over certificate forgery. Now, to guard against it, he changed it because the Supreme Court also said it was a pre-election issue. So the Supreme Court did not actually determine whether the certificate of the president and the certificate of that deputy governor was genuine or not.
You know, the Supreme Court is not a court of litigation.
Yes.
Supreme Court is a court of policy. And then, of course, whether they have actually made a classical statement or they have adjudicated on it, in itself suggested that they took a position. And then, of course, at the Supreme Court, it is a case of policy statement. So if they have made that policy statement, it therefore means that it is a position they have taken, and it takes some, I don't know what other supreme entity or institution that can reverse that particular position, and unfortunately that is the case. And of course that brings me to the issue of pre-election matters, because the judiciary would also be very strategic as we go into the next election. We saw what happened in Osun, where they had to reprint the ballot papers because of some pre-election matters. If you have similar situation play out in 2027, it's going to be a recipe for conflict. So that is why the Electoral Act must actually be followed in total to ensure that every pre-election matters are concluded even before we get to a particular stage where ballot papers will be printed. Otherwise, these are some of the issues that will create the distrust. Already, Nigerians don't trust the entities that run these elections. So, but if we bring actions that further deepen those distrusts, then there are consequences.
Would you say that the huge debt profile of this nation is an issue that needs to be visited during the campaign, and particularly without visible commensurate evidence of what these debts have been deployed towards?
Unfortunately, Nigerians are not entirely knowledgeable around issues that borders around debt and how they apply and the value it brings to the lives of citizens. The only thing Nigerians want to hear is that how does this translate to the table? So kitchen to table economy is what readily can relate to every Nigerian. And unfortunately,
What do you mean by that, kitchen to table?
kitchen to table is about if all of these things does not translate into the value of what I see on my table and how it translates into the money I spend in the market, then of course it becomes null and void to every average Nigerian.
But in essence, does it not really translate?
No, it does. And that is actually where I'm driving to, because a number of people and citizens also are unable to connect the fact that if you put adequate infrastructure in place, that it is actually going to have some transformation in the kind of value they get in the kitchen. But again, it is a function of whether or not the accountability process that are also enshrined into some of those debts that we also acquire are properly spent and judiciously managed. I think that is a conversation that is entirely different. But what we see very clearly is the fact that Nigerians are going to be asking questions as we go into 2027. But whether you have answers to them is the issue. But whether Nigerians also understand them is also another ballgame entirely.
Okay, so let me take you back again, because I'm a Nigerian, I'm a voter. There are almost 96 or 24 million of us, others, issue-based campaigns.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court, like you said, made its pronouncement. Dr. Nakwe also tried to, ask you deeper questions.
Yeah.
You're not speaking for anybody.
Yeah.
You're a civil society person. If the opposition can sow doubts in the hearts of the electorate to say, Governor so-and-so has certificate issues, Mr. So-and-so, who is seeking presidential ticket or presidential office, has certificate issue, it takes the matter away from, the jurisprudence.
Yeah.
And it makes the electorate to be the determinants of who they believe should be there.
Yeah.
So it's an issue.
Absolutely. And of course, that is also going to determine the way the election and the campaign will go, because there will be plenty of misinformation as we go into the entire process. Misinformation that borders around how people manipulate information and people to be able to get sympathy. And then, of course, paint the other candidate. I mean, it is actually part of contestation that people bring to bear. But again, the issue and the emergence of artificial intelligence and the digital media, because to be very honest, campaigns and rallies and then, of course, this contestation will not happen only in various rally grounds. The digital space will play a significant role. To be very honest, from tomorrow, data boys will be deployed where a number of
deployed.
Oh, yeah, of course. So
They will just
they are
up
active.
the
I mean, now they will
ante.
have to up and go to level 2
Yes.
now. And, of course, they go to graduate to every level as we make progress. But again, identity politics is one area that I am very concerned about that would play significant role. Religious manipulation, ethnic mobilization, and how we also use regional divide to create. Nigerians and our diversity is the biggest asset that we have.
People-
but unfortunately,
How do we guard against that? Because we have already seen people
Absolutely.
make reference to
Absolutely.
religion. Some
Absolutely.
say it's religion and nothing.
Yeah.
Your kitchen to table does not apply to him. The others have said it's ethnic group. This one is my brother.
Yeah.
How do we guard it? Because I know, I feel strongly about it. Because I know the dangers it poses to our society and our democracy.
Collective
If people are forced to retreat
Yeah.
to that
Ethnic enclave.
yes, then it becomes two extreme positions.
Absolutely.
So how do we begin to call them? That's why I was so hard on Governor Adeleke for that statement he made. And Sheikh Jingri and Mustafa was also reminded us what happened in previous election, because we didn't do much to hold them to account.
Yeah. It is actually an absence of political ideology. We need to actually find a way to reform our political party system to have specific ideology. I mean, in the US, Democrats, Republicans, you may not agree with the president, but it doesn't make you start weaponizing ethnicity, religious, to be able to push whatever agenda that you have through. So we need to find a way to be able to reintegrate and restructure our political structure to be able to deal with that. But again, we need to document most of those things.
But coming back to the issue of certificate that Sholaja ICB raised, I recall from the time of Babangida as a military head of state, looking at 70 to 80% of those he appointed at the federal cabinet, you have a lot of professors, down to when some people became governors under the democracy in 1999, you had PhD holders. Up to now, you have professors and what have you. Do you think the issue of higher education by political office holders can bring about the necessary changes? Because we've seen people who are professors and PhD holders as governors, and nothing. I think they have not done the needful. It's the issue of certificate or schooling is are they very important in a democracy?
In our ecosystem, it prepares you. But in developed climes, they have come to see it as whatever you need to do, you must develop skill to prepare you for the future. Unfortunately, it is only in Africa that we still certify and rely heavily on that. But in developed climes, they are beginning to graduate from that. But the idea is simple, that somebody has actually been able to be consistent and been disciplined and follow through a module for a particular period. It is actually to test how organized you have been. And it is a preparatory space for you to engage in whatever wider society. So it's actually to prepare you and test your capability to be able to follow through on a particular subject matter for a period of time. And I think that is exactly what that academic certification shows.
One issue that keeps rearing its head, particularly with ruling political parties, whether the national or in states, is the issue of denying opposition political parties venues for their campaign. You recall during the primaries, ADC was running from pillar to post trying to secure a place, to conduct its primaries. They were denied Eagle Square and some other places, and of course there was a kind of a politicking. Now, you also have the same thing applying to banners, posters, and most times they are not allowed to. In some states, they can't even place jingles on the stage radio or television. How do we ensure that all political parties have a level playing field when it comes to venue, posters, banners, because these are very integral parts of campaigns?
Unfortunately, you see a lot of those things happening at subnational level. And of course, even in a particular state, we saw where they have imposed as much as 150 million to hoist political banners and billboards. So that tells you to the extent governors can go as emperors to determine and hold on to their political space. But again, we also need to guide against people who want to exploit being victims, to pose themselves as victims to Nigerians and suggest that this was not the case, because the case you referenced, the minister involved said, look, there was no specific application for the use of that venue that came. So the fact is simple.
But the other party claimed they did everything.
Yeah, but I mean, there was no evidence that was actually put forward to suggest that that was done. So a lot of the time, what we have seen is that political parties also try to exploit the sympathy of the electorate as we go into the election to say, look, we are being victimized, and for this purpose, they can get sympathy votes. Sympathy vote is actually a strategic thing that plays out in the election. We saw that happen in 2015, where those kind of situations played out and changed the narrative of the election. That in itself has now become a strategy for most political parties to exploit.
I'm sorry, we have to let you go now. Dr. Salahuddin Hashim, Director of Programs at Claim Foundation. Thank you so much for giving us your perspective. And hopefully, Clean Foundation will be also be monitoring the campaign environment.
Absolutely.
And we hope to call out those that run foul of our ethics, rules, laws, and even this peace accord.
Absolutely.
That was signed. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's bring you into the program now. We have lots of mails. You're speaking up, and we'll be sharing them with Nigerians now.
Collins Eze from Kubwa says, as campaign begins today, most Nigerians already know the antecedents and current performance status of the contestants in terms of prudence, deliverables, and honesty. We also know the rhetoric of career politicians and elephant promises, which are barely kept. I appeal for a level playing ground and equal treatment across board, especially in respect to approving venues for opposition parties for campaign. Security agencies must remain neutral and professional in the performance of their duties, and INEC must sit back and give Nigerians reason to trust the outcome of the exercise. Let voter education and serious orientation accompany the campaigns. And we have Femi Jegede from Airport Road, Abuja. And Femi says, dear crew, as political parties officially begin campaign today, we the citizens want to tell them what development is not. Building of flyovers, construction of roads, renovation of public buildings, and payment of salaries are not developments. Development is creative thinking by a leader to project into the future needs of the citizens, equipping the youths with quality education that will make them independent, security of the territorial parameter of the nation, improved standard of living, and guaranteeing investors return profits on their investments, and enunciation of firm policies that will regulate the private sector. And Aniefio Kuntia from Songwater, Ogun State says, as official 2027 presidential election campaign begins today, we want to see the record of your positive achievements in your almost 4 years. First tenure, not another set of promises of the things we should have been fixed. In case you have forgotten, we want to remind you that the cost of living and economic policies under your tenure have made Nigerians, especially the ordinary citizens, survival of the fittest. Who will pay back the high debt profile piling up? Why is the cost of transportation being hectic now, where the majority of people cannot travel anymore? Where is the security? Second term should not be an inheritance, but earned through good governance and good performance. Nigerians are suffering, and we cannot continue this way.
Okay, Emmanuel James has written in from Gwagwalada. Gwagwalada is in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. And he writes, the statement by FCT Minister Nyesom Wike that he could have helped the APC secure victory in Osun State if President Bola Tinubu wanted the party to win at all costs is deeply troubling. The elections should be decided by the votes and free will of the people, not by the influence or power of government officials. Suggesting that federal might could determine an election raises serious concerns about the independence of Nigeria's democratic institutions. The media and citizens must continue to question and expose statements or actions that threaten democratic values. No politician should be allowed to place victory above the will of the people, and no political ambition is worth the blood of any Nigerian. That's President Jonathan's statement. Dixon Eka has also written in, he's in Abuja, the regular ritual of signing peace accord is good, but the commitment of politicians, particularly the ruling party, has been in serious doubt. Actions that are perceived to be crippling and silencing opposition are invitations to anarchy, and no amount of peace signings can maintain peace in such a nation. The National Peace Committee should go further to meet and engage with the actors, particularly the ruling party, to create an enabling environment for all interested parties to participate in electoral activities. Peace is priceless. Terror is senseless. Let's give peace a chance. And McPatrick Linus is also from Abuja. Yesterday, presidential candidates gathered in Abuja to sign the so-called, in his words, peace accord agreement, an unnecessary ritual, and of course, a mere jamboree that has no legal backing. Hence, those who violate it can be prosecuted. Prior to the just concluded Osun State governorship election, there was a peace accord. It was signed, yet over 30 souls were lost. And as we know, Perpetrators would never be brought to book. To jog our memory, in case we've forgotten, there was a peace accord in 2023. Yet, political thugs and all sorts of unsavory characters were procured to intimidate and unleash violence on innocent voters with impunity, especially on obese supporters in Lagos, without their principals, whose sign they are called, held accountable till date.
Okay, from our YouTube live stream, Abdul Sakura Deleke says in October 2023, Buab Cement promised to crush the bag of cement to 35,000 naira per bag. The powers at the top frustrated him. Yes, I recall when that promise was made, it was not fulfilled. Perhaps something the FCCPC needs to do is to look into that promise. It suggests that perhaps we could get the price cement at a lower price. Who are the powers that be that prevented that, if actually they did? Food for thought. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll come back tomorrow for another edition. On behalf of Mustafa, Shola, and Uju, my name is Amici, and we'll have a good time.